Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are, another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Hey, Peter.
And I'm one of the rookies.
Yeah, exactly.
How many more rookies and rookettes are out there? Rookettes.
Exactly. The rookettes.
Come on.
There you go. Episode number 206. Part 2, Peter. We're going to do part 2. I don't think we've ever done a 2-part series before. Not in this podcast.
No, I've offered to get out of your damn long podcasts, but you like them. So here's 2 long podcasts.
How to easily flip sellers' objections into profitable deals ethically and honestly. Now, last week when we did the podcast, I was ranting and raving that I wanted reviews and I wanted people because it's taken me thousands and thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars to figure this stuff out, and we're going to just kind of give it away in a free podcast, right? So yeah. I was asking people to I wanted some recognition for that. So I asked
how to work out.
So we got reviews and I got a lot of support tickets and people really enjoyed what we did last week. So they were requesting part 2. So
that's
here we
great.
are. Okay. So here's the.
Did they like my jokes?
They didn't say anything about your jokes, Peter. No comments on the jokes.
I'll throw a few more in today then.
Oh, joy. Here we go. Today's description. Imagine this. Your real estate seller turned from being the typical suspect into a true bona fide prospect simply by asking for the offer. And because you have been studying mine or others, real estate investors' materials, you were able to keep your prospect interested in your offers. But now comes the hardest process of the whole transaction. Answering the seller's questions, handling any objections or rebuttals, so the seller feels comfortable about working with you or me, or carrying on with this transaction. What do you do? How do you keep this seller at the edge of his seat, wanting to continue with turning his house over to you? By popular request, this podcast is a continuation of episode number 205, where we will not be doing the normal, Peter. Not that we were ever normal anyways, but not where we're going to be doing the normal. But something different. We're going to do it. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to do it. So you can hear it, copy it, and repeat it yourself. So Pete will be role-playing as the skeptical seller, banging Bill, the deal maker, me, the deal maker, with objections. And Bill will answer with my proven and tested answers that almost always satisfies the seller so the deal keeps moving forward. Not the deal gets done, but it keeps moving forward. And eventually it will get done. You're going to want to take notes on this one. So go ahead, grab some paper and a pencil, and get ready. Because if you were clever, which some people are, you would listen to this podcast several times and write down the things that we're talking about. So you ready, Peter?
Absolutely.
Right. So many investors are money motivated. We talked about this last week. So many investors are money motivated, which simply means all they think of in a real estate transaction is the dollars and the cents. If you plan on being an amateur and having a low paycheck from real estate investing, you'll do foreclosures and bank-owned properties, and you don't have to worry about what we're talking about in this podcast. You'll just deal with the numbers and the calculators and bitch and complain about how the bank sold you out for $500. Right?
Yep.
But if you want to work once and get paid now, paid monthly, paid later, you'll soon realize the money often comes last in the transaction, which is what makes bigger deals in the end. What I'm talking about here is going, as Dan Kennedy says so famously, Mr. Dan Kennedy, who's a famous marketer and guru, he says we're going to go from being a pest to a welcome guest. If you and the seller aren't jiving, the seller just picks higher numbers so he feels there is higher exchange for him just to deal with you because he really doesn't like you.
I've never heard you say that before.
Yeah. There's a few.
That's a little scary. Like, the less he likes you, he goes, I'm not dealing with this jerk unless he gives me more money. But I understand that,
you
right?
You do it.
And if you like somebody, you'll give in a little bit. Like, this guy will probably be okay, so it won't be a pain in the neck. So this number is okay. Right. Pain in the neck, you got to charge more because you're dealing with the pain in the neck. That's interesting. I never heard you say that.
Or, more importantly, he won't bend. It's not even that he charges more. It's just that he doesn't have enough affinity for you, and he won't bend. I mean, think of it this way. How could I say this? So, let me think for a second. There's something I got to pull out of my archive of stories here. So I was thinking, like, suppose I were to, I'm going to paint my doors and my shutters on my house, right?
Yeah.
So if I hire a stranger to do that, right, and he gives me a price, we'll say $200, right?
Right.
My son-in-law is like, I need some work, some part-time work. I'll do that. How much would you charge me? I'll charge you $200. Which person am I going to choose to do the $200 worth of work?
Sure, the one that you're more vested in, the one you like more.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. No, and I understood that. Just the number part never kind of got me. They won't bend. They won't even do the deal. But if they do the deal, begrudgingly a little bit, the price goes up.
Sometimes,
so it pays. See, that's my secret. I'm so likable. People give me good numbers.
Here we go. Just tell us about it, Peter. Peter. Just tell us.
Well, I'm renting my condo out now.
I didn't mean it.
And it's too late, Bill. And I got a bunch of people coming. And one lady, she's a manager of the local supermarket. She's getting married. She wants a nice place. She offered me 6 months rent up front on top of the security deposit. She wants to be the first one in line. So she's the first on my list for tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. So
right.
I'll have to be nice to her, huh?
No, be careful.
Yeah, I know.
That usually means you aren't going to get the second 6 months. All right, let's get back to the podcast. So, if, I'm going to read that again, okay? So, if you and the seller aren't jiving, the seller just picks a higher number so he or she feels there is a higher exchange for them to do the deal with you. Okay?
Yep.
You must, absolutely must have affinity or some degree of positive mojo between the two of you before you can build agreements and keep the conversation going. It's just a natural law.
Yeah, and that's the exact term, isn't it? Positive mojo.
Yeah.
I was looking for the right word.
You have to have some positive mojo between you, affinity, how much you like one another, positive mojo between you and the seller. Then you can start building agreements, and that will keep the conversation moving and going.
Now, do you get that positivity by answering these questions right, or just being nice to them? How do you start that?
I'm going to tell you about that in about 2 seconds. Okay?
All right.
So, but I want you to understand what I'm saying here. Okay. See, you're engaging the person because, first of all, they like you. Second of all, they're happy with the agreements you're talking about. And they keep the conversation going until you can come to a resolution.
Yeah.
And so many people think, oh, I'm just going to send an offer. I have coaching clients. Well, I send out 13 offers this week. Did you talk to anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on paper and they're just numbers. Okay? So
Yep.
how do you, which is what you were just asking, how do you ethically and honestly arrange this type of bond between the two of you? Right?
And the reason I'm asking that, I know I can do it the wrong way. I know some of your coaching clients do it the wrong way. They're just trying to be friendly and funny and entertaining or whatever, to just kind of like in a phony way, and that's not right. So I want to hear you. I'm trying to get better at that myself and be more real about it, not just likable.
Totally. So let me pull back the curtain so we can peek into where the true vault of money is kept in real estate. Ready? You just kind of said it. Be interested, not interesting. Be interested, not interesting. So kind of what you're saying. So in other words, don't be an actor or actress. Be real, honest, sincere. Let this ooze through the air in the room. How do you do this? Now, this is highly technical, very complicated things, Peter.
Yeah.
You ask questions. I'm joking around.
Well, it has to be partly in the ballpark of listening more than just yapping.
So the way I look at this is that you could be at the bottom of a hill, pushing a rope up the hill or a chain up the hill, and what are you going to get?
You can't push us.
Yeah, it gets all balled up, right? So that would be your seller at the top of the hill pulling you up the hill. They don't know, right?
Yeah, you're making them do all the work, maybe?
Or you could go to the top of the hill and pull your seller up to where you are. You do this by asking questions.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. When you were young, Peter, back in the 1930s?
Hey, my birthday's this
I
month.
know.
Don't make me feel bad.
I already got you your gift, so you're all set. So,
Woohoo! Yeah, another real estate
no,
book.
it's not. I did something completely different this year. So,
All right.
anyways, I hope you're going to like it. Anyways, I lost. So back. I don't even know what decade it was. It used to be when you went to a nightclub, especially in New York, they would have velvet ropes, right? And people would stand in line, and there would be. I call him a bodyguard, but it was, what were they called? Bouncer.
The door
bouncer,
guy.
right? They would be at the door, and they would kind of like let people in, right? So this is what this is like. It's like being in those velvet ropes to get to the prize. So when you ask questions, it's keeping them in the velvet ropes.
Yeah, because you can't see them, and you don't know what they are unless you ask the guy what his path is.
Right.
Like, he's got a path in his head, right? He's got some idea where he's trying to go, and you have to find it. Okay.
So
I get it.
You do this by asking questions. What you really need to do, and this is really important, and I didn't make this up. I read this somewhere. I don't remember where it was, otherwise I would give them credit for it. But you need to tune into your seller's radio station. This radio station's blaring in his ears. And that radio station is WIIFM.
Okay,
What's
that?
in it for me? WIIFN.
Yeah, but Bill, that's what we're doing. We're standing there going, what's in it for me?
Well, we already know. See, if you use my 7 deal strategies, which last night I did a meetup, which if you weren't on, shame on you, because it was amazing, because I started right from the beginning with the 7 deals, and I did the loan to value ratio, and I walked people through. And Peter, I don't think I've had a meetup with so many people telling me, oh my God, I get it. I didn't understand that before. Now it makes sense. I had a lot of that last night. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why is because I'm telling you, don't start with the math. But once they give you how much they're asking for the house and how much you owe, you can then figure out what is the loan to value ratio. So in other words, how much equity do they have? Right? And then at that point, you can start structuring what path you're going to take. Right? So I'm off topic here, but one of the things that I explained about on the call last night is there's a couple things you need to pay attention to. One is there are forks in the road when you this is like you're just on the phone talking to the person like almost immediately. The first things you should be aware of when you're talking to somebody, other than the math, is how do they view this house? What kind of what goggles do they have on, right? So what do they see? Is this house considered an asset to them? In other words, it's going to bring them money, or is it considered a liability where it's costing them money? And then once you figure out which one of those two things, you know what path to go on. Then when you're doing the numbers, the real key is there's two things you need. There's only two ways to make money in real estate. One is with the equity, you buy low and sell high. And two is with cash flow. Those are the only two things that we use. Now there is appreciation and all that kind of stuff, but we don't use those numbers. Those are by the way numbers. Which is why
you can't count on those.
Which is why I'm struggling so much in the apartment business. I realized this the other day, is because these guys they rely on appreciation. When they're buying, they're relying on appreciation. So I'm looking at these deal structures and I'm looking at all these deals and I'm like, this is not a deal because it's so ingrained in my blood, in my skin, in the cells of my body and in my mind, right? That you should buy a property when you close on a property, there should be equity in it or cash flow, one or the other, or both. And if you don't have that, then you're in trouble, you know? And I was reading the other day that there's actually a formula for that, and I didn't know that. And we're going to talk about this later, but you know, and I'm totally off on topic. But this guy was saying that if your cap rate and your interest rate are at least 2% apart, then you have cash flow. And it was like so simple to me.
Wow!
Right? So
we'll talk definitely more about that.
I
later.
like these little like simple things that are like indicators of a deal. And I teach those to you guys. So one of those indicators is that when you ask questions, okay, you need to dial into the thing that's blaring in your customer's ear, which is the radio station, What's in It for Me, WIIFM, right? So what I do, and I used to think that it was because I was a weirdo, and I found out that I am definitely a weirdo, but in a good way, because what I do is I tell related stories of how I, or you, have helped others in the seller's shoes. So I guess you can call them parables. I mean, a parable, by definition of me, is a story that teaches you something specific. You know, like the Bible is full of parables. Like they're stories about what happened 2,020 years ago, right? But they're intended to teach you something. So telling stories is good. Now, what happens if you're brand new and you don't have stories like me? Well, if you listen to enough of our podcasts, you can use my stories. You can say, well, my friend, my mentor, my coach, my buddy, whatever you want to call me, you know, this jerk that we listen to on the podcast, whatever you want to call me. I don't care what you call me. But he told me a story once about how blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, even if you're on like Bigger Pockets and you hear, you know, Grant Cardone talking about some story, or you hear some other, you know, Brad talks about, or Brandon, whatever his name is, talks about some story on, use his story. Like, hey, my buddy had this story one time. You could pick these stories up, but the point is that if you think about it, Peter, our society up until I don't know, 100 years ago, we did not mass educate ourselves, right? We didn't have school systems that had, 300 or 3,000 kids in them. We had schoolhouses that had 10 or 12 people in them, right? So, we didn't have all the information that we have now, all the books. And, you watch the news now, and everybody and their brother's writing a book, right? That's like the fad, right? So, all I'm saying is that prior to, all the years prior to what we live now, the way information got passed was in stories, right? So, all of the traditions, I know I grew up with them. The guy that raised me was 100% Indian. I thought it was Sioux, but I was corrected by one of my relatives that it wasn't Sioux. It was some other. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But he was 100% American Indian.
Yeah.
And my whole, when I started getting older, I had to be careful because I was repeating those stories and it made me sound real hillbilly-ish and hickish, because that's the way he was. Point is I still remember those stories. I still joke about those. My real father has stories, but they're not as many as he had. So telling stories is a good thing. So you're asking questions, right? You're honing into where their attention's at, and and you don't have to overdo it on the stories. They'll just pop into your head, right? If you're listening to people like me, or if you're out there doing business, you'll tell stories, right? So you have to be you, not boring, but you animate. Animate the stories. And this is where what you're talking about. Don't be interesting. Don't be an actress like you're on TV and you're like pretending. But at the same time, be interested in them, but animated.
Yeah.
Let them know that you're interested, that this is sincere, this is true. People will feel that, right? Put some real enthusiasm into wanting to help the seller any way you can. The way I do that is I know it's a numbers game. For me, I know I got to talk to at least 5 people before I buy a house. When you're new, it'd be at least 15 people to buy a house. So just go through your numbers. So the way you can do it, if you're clever, is say, okay, I got to get through my 14 no's to hit my 15th person. So just enjoy yourself when you're in the house and take your time while you're there as an education, right?
Yeah, you know what I've been working on? Because I'm still going through a lot of things all the time that are newish to me. New things, leases, contracts, Zillow rentals, whatever it is, screening tenants, and it's a bit new. I'm still getting used to it. And I'll do something like, I should have done that different. Right. And I go, good, I learned something. And I don't care. I don't care if it costs me money. I don't care if it was a little aggravated. I go, oh, good, I learned. Oh, now next time I do that. Awesome. Exactly. And I just have to focus on that, or else I'll lose. Exactly. If I do that, I win. And I had a great day yesterday, just working on a bunch of stuff with the wife. It was awesome because we worked out things, learned a couple things, and it's totally fine. You can't do it right all the time. But if you learn all the time, you're getting somewhere.
And then it'll become, it's no different than, I smoke cigars. Everybody knows that. But with Tabucky Jones, who used to play for the Patriots for, like 10 years. And he won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And when I first met him, we used to talk about all that stuff. Now we don't talk about any of that, but because I see him multiple times a week. The point is that I remember him telling me that, because one of the questions I have is when he's on the field, how does he know, what to do? How does your mind work that fast that you know what, like to go to the right or go to the left or to pass the ball? How do you know how to do that? He's like,
he's got to be anticipating something. He has to make a move. He has to have some prediction.
Right. He's like, you don't think about it at all. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, we practice it so much that it's instinct.
Yeah.
And we just do it.
Yeah.
He says, the only difference is when we're practicing, we don't have the adrenaline. When we're out on the field and all the fans are there, we have adrenaline. Yeah. So it just it amps it up.
Oh yeah.
So that's what people don't do in this industry is they don't practice it so much that it becomes instinct. So the things we did in episode number 205 and 206, even though we're getting a lot of compliments on it, it's useless unless somebody writes these things down. And, what I suggest you do is you get 5x7 cards. And these things, these questions that we're going over, you write down on the front of the card the question, and then on the back of the card what I'm saying. And then sit in front of, either, sit there and read them until you got them pretty much memorized, although I don't think it should be memorized, but pretty much you get it. And then have somebody, give somebody the cards and ask those questions to you. And then have the person flip over the 5x7 card and see if you did it right.
Can you imagine the difference just doing that, where somebody asks you the question and you have two responses? One is like, gee, you just lost. Or the guy asking you the question, and instead of worrying about it, you go, oh,
right,
and be happy that he asked you the question. Be confident that you asked the question. Go, oh, you know what? I know a guy who had that problem. You know what he did?
Right.
He did this,
Exactly.
this. And I do this, this. He goes, oh, okay.
Or my friend told me somebody that he knew had that problem, and here's what he did.
Right. Because when someone has a problem, they just don't know the
Right.
answer. They're just hoping somebody will drop an answer. And if you know it, and every time he says, well, what about this, what about that, which we're doing today,
Right.
and you're not worried about it, he says, wow, this guy's not worried about it. When I teach music, I had a guy the other day says, well, I can't read music. I can't do this. I have trouble doing this. How long have you been working at it? 2 days. I said, well, that's okay. I'm a professional. Don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. Just show up. I'll take care of it. I've done this so many times. It's so easy. Just show up. It'll be totally fine. You go, okay.
Exactly.
Just the absolute confidence. People just sign up because I just know what I'm doing in that realm. You know what you're doing in this realm. I'm learning. You guys are learning. And you can be that person. Because you know what makes money? Confidence.
Exactly right.
They don't believe in you. They're not signing on the dotted line.
So what you said is exactly true, because when we were on the meetup last night, we were doing a little bit of role playing, and I asked one of the students that was on the call, and he was like exactly like that. And I waited like 20 seconds, and I'm like, dude, you just lost the deal. He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, you just lost the deal. You injected lack of confidence in your seller. Now
you showed him you didn't know.
You're better off to say, I don't know. I have to figure that out. Or I got to go ask, or I got to go, whatever. Right? All right, let's keep moving on, because I wasn't planning on spending this much time on this. So, be you, not boring, but you animate. Put some real enthusiasm in wanting to help this seller any way you can, because here's the truth. Karma will do the rest for you. If you help enough people and not buy houses, all of a sudden karma will take over. Okay? When done this way, the seller will be engaged and have questions or objections as you enlighten him. And enlighten means that you take him from where he is now with knowledge and you bring him up a level. Or give him more data so he can think more, or her more, with what you're talking about. So you're adding data to his thinking process, right?
Sure.
So he'll have more objections as you enlighten them with your stories of helping others in the past, or my stories, or your friend's stories, or whoever, right? Once this mojo is starting to boil like a good soup, blending all its flavors, right? You will be at the door of the real estate vault I was speaking of. Question is, will you fumble around with not having the combination? Or will you have the combination memorized, drilled, and ready to get the result of opening the vault door and the treasure inside?
That's roughly a $64,000 question, isn't it?
Pretty much. So today, what we're going to do, let's get going here because it's already been more time than I wanted. But so today, Pete is going to ask me questions. I think you wrote them down this time, right? So you have some questions, right? So Pete's got questions that he has noticed in houses that people have. So he's going to be our skeptical seller today, and he's going to hit me with questions or downright objections, and I'm going to answer them to overcome them or keep the conversation moving, right? The way that I've done so many times before in so many houses. Okay?
Yep.
So honestly, you should, like I said, you should, if you want to get the benefits out of podcast number 205 and 206, if I were you, I would write these down, these questions down on a 5x7 index card. And then on the back, I would write the answers the way that I say them. Okay? Because that will help you. It'll make you deals. Okay? So, fire away, Pete. Let's do it.
So the setup is we're in the house, I'm the seller, and we're working on a terms deal like rent to own, lease option, right?
Okay.
So one of the things that I see happens is you're telling the person that you'll find the buyer, you'll find someone to buy the house. So okay, that's pretty open-ended. So they're going to say, well, what if you can't find a buyer?
Right. So basically you're telling them that you're going to sell it on a lease option or you're going to, whatever you're going to do, but you're going to go look for the buyer. And the question is, what if I can't find a buyer? That's the question. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. That's a good question. However, it doesn't happen much. Here's the reason why. You may not know this, but about 81% of the folks looking to buy a house in today's environment, or at least in the United States, actually can't qualify for a mortgage. And I actually tap into that pool of people, right, and let them rent until they can get qualified for the mortgage. And it works great. Now, if we need to do a slot deal, because the first answer is if I'm going to stay in the deal. So if we do a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer, and if you don't know what that is, go to flippinghouses4rookies.com/free stuff, and there's videos there. If we do a slot deal, we're going to answer it a little bit differently. Okay? Which is now if we need to do a slot deal, because of what you owe, because realize the reason why we're doing a slot deal is they owe too much money, or they owe a lot of money, or they're asking a lot of money. They don't even have to owe it. They just could be asking for a higher number. They could own it free and clear, and they're asking top dollar, and they won't come off that number. Right? So if we do a slot deal, you would say, because of what you owe or asking is a little high, I'm going to have to bring the house to the market and see what it says. The only reason a house doesn't sell is because it's dysfunctional. I'll come back to that. Well, let me explain that now. So dysfunctional means you got to walk through one bedroom to get to another bedroom, right? Or the kitchen. One time I had a kitchen on a raised ranch. I had a kitchen in the basement because the woman she didn't want the kitchen upstairs. She wanted it to be in the basement. Old Italian lady, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's Italian. Bill, my house has two kitchens, one upstairs, one downstairs. Every Italian family got two.
Or it could be as simple as one time I was in a house, we walked in, we walked through the living room, went into the kitchen, and off to the back corner of the kitchen was a bathroom, and then you had to go through the bathroom to get into the bedroom to go to another bedroom.
Oh, God.
So dysfunctional usually means the floor layout is not good. And it's not something you can usually change without major construction. You know, like major.
Yeah, floor plan. Floor plans.
I'm not talking about moving walls around. I'm talking about major, like moving staircases and all that kind of stuff. Okay?
Yeah, moving a bathroom, not easy. There's pipes that go there.
So I'm going to start from the beginning so you can get the whole thing, all right? So because of what you owe or you're asking, it is a little high. I'm going to have to bring the house to the market and see exactly what it will bring. Okay? The only reason the house doesn't sell, or any house doesn't sell, is because it's dysfunctional or it's too high priced. The first, I can usually, the dysfunctional part, I can't usually fix. But the high price I can, if you give me good terms and good payments. Because one thing you got to know about real estate is there's two ways to make money in real estate. It's in the equity, where you buy low and sell high, or it's in the payments. So if you don't have any equity in your house, you owe more than what it's worth, I could make up the difference in cash flow. So we need to talk about that, right?
Yep.
So now, remember what we did last week. After we get done with our explanation, we ask a question because we want to keep moving forward, right? So here's a couple questions you could ask, okay? So you would say to them, what's the longest you could wait to get paid off? Right? Or what's the least you could take monthly? Now, one thing you got to know here is that sometimes sellers will kick in money. Okay, so that means that suppose you got a $200,000 house and the payment's $2,300 a month or $2,200 a month. That's too high, right?
Yeah.
Because if you went and borrowed $200,000, it wouldn't be that much. You're willing to pay, we'll say, $1,500. So that means there's a difference of $800. You could make that offer. I can only pay $1,500, and the owner will pay the other $800. And you'll think, why would they do that? Because right now they're paying $2,300. So paying $800 is less than paying $2,300.
Yeah, if they got themselves in a pickle, like some people put the house on a 15-year mortgage and the price is so high. If you're paying for it yourself, that may be one thing, but to ask somebody else to pull that off, it's just way beyond norm, and they just don't want to do it, or they can't do it. It just doesn't match the market. So they have to do something. They got themselves stuck.
Okay, good. So I answered that question?
Yeah, I like your questions at the end. That's something I hadn't thought about. You know, the question at the end to keep it going. Otherwise, it's like you answer the question and you're staring at each other. So that's really clever.
Well, your job is to gather as much. You're like a private eye. You got to gather as much information as possible before you make your offer. You know, it's kind of like with my kids. You know, it's like once I say something, I can't take it back. It's like that definitely with my wife. I mean, if I tell my wife I'm taking her out to dinner on Friday night, taking it back is real hard. Because she knows Friday night is the cigar night. And it's like, well, you said, and well, what about? And it's kind of hard to retract it, right? So my point is that once you make the offer, it's kind of hard to take it back.
Yeah.
Okay? Make sense?
Oh, yeah.
All right, you got another one for me?
Sure. Well, general things are like, you know, you're trying to get them to do this, and they have to, like I said before, they have to have confidence, they have to trust you, they have to believe in you, right? Why should they trust you? Who the hell are you? What real estate agency are you from, and all that crap. So they're going to say, how long have you been doing this for?
Right. So I don't get that much, but I would understand that our listeners could. Okay. So I'm going to give you two answers, because I'm going to give you an answer if I was a new guy. I don't use this answer because it's not true.
Yeah, you're not a new guy.
Okay, so
Bill, you know, people never ask me that question. You know why?
Because you're with me.
I'm so damn old.
You're so damn old, yeah. So you're going to be shocked at what you should say, because I tell my coaching clients this all the time. You ready?
Yeah.
Frankly, I just started. And honestly, I wish I could get away with that. And I have done that in the past, because I wish I was in your shoes, because it makes the deal so much easier when they find that out. So frankly, I just started. In fact, I just graduated from real estate training school, and this is my first transaction. And I want to make sure it's done right. So will you help me?
Are you playing into the fact that most decent people really do like to help, and they'll lean in and help you to get the thing done? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Plus, I have a mentor who's been doing this for over 18 plus years, and has done hundreds of transactions just like this. So he's in the background, and if I have any questions or need any help, I can go to him. So
Right.
you could definitely, minimally send me a support ticket. And that would be true, right? Or you can become a coaching client, because if you have this deal, my coaching fee becomes irrelevant because you're going to make it back your first deal, right? So that's what I would do. I wish, in fact, I'd like to dummy up and say, frankly, I just started.
Bill, see if I can get my mind wipe tool out. I'll wipe your mind.
No, I don't want to go that crazy.
Let's try that.
Now. In fact, I just graduated from real estate training school, and this is my first transaction. And I want to make sure it's done right. Will you help me?
I like that part. I want to make sure it's done right. I mean, that really shows the person that you're trying. Which is more important than a guy's been doing it so long he doesn't care anymore.
Okay, now if you have a suspect, this will pull out the suspect right away. They'll be like, oh, no, I'm just going to hire a realtor. Okay, good. Let them go. They're a suspect. You're not going to make a deal with them anyways. They're just stringing you along, right? Now realize, a lot of people will be, what do you call, passive aggressive? In other words, they're pretenders. Yeah. They're going to pretend to be your friend and pretend to like you and really turn on the acting skills, so they look like they're your best friend, and they're going to really I don't know how to explain this. Am I doing a good job? It's like you're going to feel like you're going to come back and tell me, oh, this guy's really interested. Yeah. But really, it's a passive-aggressive person that you haven't figured out yet. And the only thing they're doing is they're buttering you up because they think they're getting their money from you. So you got to kind of pierce that social veneer a little bit to find out, is this guy acting or is he really sincere? And this starts to flip that operating basis a little bit, right? Because it's like it's my first deal. Can you help me?
Right.
Now the way I would answer it is, I've been doing this for 18 plus years, and I've done hundreds of deals. Yep. And then if they continue, I can always have the ad hoc answer of, well, plus I've helped students do hundreds of deals. So I do this in my sleep. I don't even think about it. So here's the question once you're done, right? Because you're going to say, that what I just told you, right? So you're new and you just started, right?
Yeah.
So here's one of the questions. There's two questions I would ask.
Hey, Bill, before you do that, can I throw my wise guy answer?
Sure.
I tell them longer than you.
Oh, Jesus. I wouldn't do that.
I shouldn't say that, though, huh? I won't say that. Okay, I'm kidding. But, just keep in mind that you have been doing it. You do know more about it than the person. I mean, I actually wound up in a house with a realtor, a guy that was following you, and he asked me to help him with a lease option. And I wound up in a house with him, a realtor, and the owner of the house, who was a realtor, explaining how that works, when I was real damn new.
If you've listened to 3 or 4 of our podcasts, you know more than the average person.
Yeah, and that's my point. Just realize you know more than the average person, so you're still ahead of them. It's fine.
Okay, so you do the whole, not my answer, but you do the whole, I just started, right? So here's the question.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there's 2 of them. It's a 2-part question.
Yeah.
Good. Does that make you uncomfortable, or can we move forward?
That's a good one.
And then the big question. And this is what you do if you're brand new. Perfect. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today? It amazes me, especially when I do nights like last night where I do the deal structure and people are all ooh and gone and everything about the math. And we just talked about it a little while ago. It's like the math should be last. Yeah. Right? You don't need to be a dealologist like I am. You don't need to be a professional like I am. unless you want to do 3, 4, 5 deals a month and you're going to do high volume. But to do one deal and get used to it, you don't need to be that way. All you need to do is you need to understand and ask that question. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today? And let them make an offer. Once they tell you what they want, match one of my 7 core strategies to it and just do the deal. That's all. The only thing you need to math for is so you know which one of the 7 deals you should use. If it's got 80% loan to value ratio, then you use a getting the deed. If it's got 85%, then you do a lease option. If it's got 90%, you do an option. If it's got 100%, you do a slot deal. And it's not even what they owe, it's what they're willing to take compared to what they owe. Right?
Well, that way, that's how you know if you're getting any equity, if there's any equity left for you. If there isn't, you know where you have to go.
So you know what to do with the equity, more like it, yeah. So like with a slot deal, you're going to make the equity. You're going to create the equity. But if you're going to stay in a sandwich lease option, which is a rent-to-own deal, what we call rent-to-own, if you're going to stay in the deal, then you have to get 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow. If you're not getting that, then do a slot deal. It's just mathematics on which one to do. But talking to the person and figuring out what they want is a whole nother story. Okay?
Right.
Good. Give me another one, Peter.
So the biggest thing is it's either us or a realtor. People usually use realtors for sale by owners, are trying not to use a realtor, and then we show up. Not the buyer, but the guy getting the buyer. So they're going to wonder, what can you do that the realtor can't?
So
why you?
So I'm going to give you an answer here, but I also want you to know that if you're on my email list, I sent out an email yesterday. I forgot the title of it. Something about staring in the eyes of the real estate mafia or something like that. Last Wednesday, not yesterday, but last Wednesday, I'm part of a networking group, and I met a realtor I used there. I met my banker there. I met my mortgage guy there. I met my attorney there. So the whole real estate mafia is there, right? And I got to do a presentation, and normally I do it on because about twice a year each one of us gets to stand up in front of the room and tell everybody what we do so they can bring us leads, right? So they understand and they can bring us leads. So I decided to, recently, in the past, not recently, but in the past, I would talk about flipping houses for rookies and, how they can get into here and they can listen to my podcast and all that kind of stuff. And I just decided to as I put in my email, jump in my 1932 Ford suicide door and grab my Tommy gun and jump out and just start shooting right in the mafia's den, right? So That's what I did. I went right at him, and I did a 15-minute talk of why I'm different than a realtor. So if you want that, go into your email list and look for the email I sent on June 17th because it's there. I actually have it recorded, and you can download that recording.
Was it last week?
I did it yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
I did the presentation last week, and then by the time I got all the geeks to upload it and download it and get it on the page and all that, it took me a week to do that. Okay.
No, I got you. Okay.
So
make sure I have the right date.
I'm going to answer your question. What can you do? What can I do that a realtor can't do? I'm going to answer the question, but if you want to get that recording, it's a really good recording. It's 15 minutes of me talking about how I'm different than a realtor in a room full of realtors. Okay.
Oh, you recorded
it.
And you attached it to the email?
And so you can go to the email and then click the link and go listen to the recording or download it.
All right.
But for right now, I'm going to answer your question. Okay. So, what can I do that a realtor can't, or what's the difference, right? So the first thing I'm going to say is, first of all, the realtor is going to sign a contract with you that's usually for 6 months to go find a buyer. I'm the buyer. I'm right here. You don't have to find me. I'm right here.
Yep.
Now, if you're going to do a lease option deal, because that's a little different than actually being the buyer, you may not say I'm the buyer. You're going to say, I'm only asking you to work with me for 90 days, not 6 months.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm going to tap into the 81% of buyers that can't qualify for a mortgage in the United States. And I'm going to...
Yeah, so that means the realtor's trying to get his buyers from the 19%. Right. And isn't it true that 19% are looking for the houses that we renovate sometimes, and other guys renovate, they're really, really nice?
And you could get into this tangent if you want, but those buyers, the 19%, are buying a house. My 81% are buying the financing and will turn their cheek on the repairs in the house because they're buying the financing. So I'm going to tap into that group. Okay? So because of that, because they're buying the financing, right, they're going to live there. They're going to pay the rents on time. So you can pay your bills with that, right? They're going to do all the repairs and the maintenance until I can get them qualified for a favorable loan. And then because we're giving them this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because that's how most of them believe, which it is, because we're not at every corner, right? So because we're giving them this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, they will pay a premium price for the house, which is why I can pay you a higher price on this property. Does that make sense? Lastly, I have no fees. My money comes from anything I make.
The buyer?
My money comes from anything I make above and beyond what I promise you. It's a win-win situation for you, the seller, for me, the person that's doing the transaction, and for the buyer. But technically, the buyer is paying for my fees.
Absolutely. Good answer.
Okay. Now the questions you would ask are, what were you expecting to get from this house? Or I'm sorry, what were you expecting to get from me when you called me? Because if they were thinking about going to a realtor, why would they call you?
Yeah.
So you have to ask them, what were you expecting to get from me when you called me? Okay, now watch this.
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, I want my full asking price. I don't want to pay the fees. Okay? If I did that, would you sell me the house? It's like,
there it is.
Like, you don't have to be a genius to do this. Just follow the script, right? So you get all done explaining, because if they're asking you what's the difference between you and the realtor, that means they're comparable shopping you. So just go right for the jugular and say, what were you expecting to get from me when you called? Right? And then they put it right at your doorstep, and all you have to do is say, okay, if I give you that, will you sell it to me? Now, once they say, I want the full asking price, you say, okay, perfect, I can do that. Here's how it works. And then depending on what they tell you, you have to be quick on your because that's why you have to memorize and know the 7 deal structures. If they say they want their full asking price, then you just say, okay, if I were to give that to you, would you sell me the house? Well, yeah. Okay, here's how it works. And you go into a slot deal explanation. As you're doing the deal, they'll probably say, well, I don't want to be a landlord. Okay, well, in that case, then you go into the second offer. You say, in that case, if you give me 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow, I'll stay in the deal, and you just become the bank. And you just gave them a second offer.
Yeah, because if they want to be the landlord, you have to be the guy watching the property, so you got to get paid for that. You're not going to do it for free.
No. You're 100% correct, but you're saying it backwards. If they want all the money, they got to be a landlord.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they want all the money, they have to be the landlord. If they don't want to be the landlord, they can't have all the money.
It's one or the other.
They have to give you some. Right. They have to give you some.
Keep you in the deal.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hire somebody to do something and not pay them.
Yeah, you got it. You got
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. See, that's why I like you. It's a seesaw. They ask for something, you ask for something. They want more money, you need more time. They want they'll do it faster. You can do less money, but they want all the cash and they want it all now. You want all the cash, you can't have it all now. You got to wait a little bit. You want it all now, it's going to be less.
Right.
This is just finances 101, economics 101.
Agreed. All right, next question.
Sometimes the folks are buying another house, and they're worried that them still paying the mortgage will interrupt getting a mortgage. Like they owe too much money and they can't get another mortgage. So they ask, like, won't this make it hard for me to get a mortgage on the house they're trying to buy?
Okay, except I'm going to answer that question because that's a deep question. Except most of the time, before they ask me that, they want to know what I charge and how I make my money.
Oh, right.
Right?
That's right.
They want to know. I mean, because that's kind of a specific question. So we could do one or the other first, but.
Well, no, that's right, because that's more in sequence. So, yeah, they're wondering, well, if you give me my full asking price, especially, right? Like a slot deal, like, so how do you make your money?
So basically what happens is they're saying, this sounds too good to be true. When is the other shoe going to drop? That's basically what they're thinking.
Well, no one else is going to give them that big number they're asking for because no one else has. And you're standing there, we're standing there. So how are we supposed to do it? For free?
Right. So they would, so you're saying they would ask, what do you charge and how do you make your money? One or the other. Like, what are your fees?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We say we don't charge fees. We're giving all this money. How are we going to get paid?
So how many times have we heard that in the house and it calms them down, right, Pete, when you say what I'm about to say? Because they want to know where you're getting your money from. Because they don't want to sneak attack.
Well, if they don't ask that, they probably wouldn't do the deal because they think it's full of baloney.
Right.
They have to ask. As a matter of fact, if they don't ask, we should probably tell them, no?
Yeah. I try to.
How are they going to believe you otherwise?
So I would say something like, that's one of the benefits of working with us. We don't charge commissions. You don't pay anything for our services. The buyer pays our fees because we make our money above and beyond what we promise to pay you in the transaction. It's a beautiful thing for you, actually. And when I make offers, you will understand where I'm making my money so the other shoe doesn't drop when you least expect it and you regret making the deal with me later on.
Yep.
And then the question would be, so what would have to happen for me to buy your house today?
Got it.
Right?
Yep. Well, when I first heard you explain this, and I'm saying this for anybody who hasn't heard too many of the podcasts, in case this might be the first or the fifth or, not too many, people are going to think, why the hell would somebody overpay for a house? How is the buyer going to pay that much? Who's crazy to do that?
So if you bought my computer today for $1,000 and paid me $1,000, right? How much you paying for the computer? You paid me $1,000 in cash, so it's $1,000, right? But if you swipe your credit card and you put the $1,000 on your credit card, it made 2 years worth of payments. Are you paying more than $1,000?
Hell yeah.
That's what we're doing with houses. So the buyer is making monthly payments, so they know they're going to pay more.
Right, and they're in that position because their credit isn't good right now. They're going to get it fixed, but right now they can't buy a house unless they do this, pay a little extra, or else they keep renting for the rest of their lives and pay more money down the road. So this is actually still saving the money. It's the way to get out of the rabbit nest there.
So just to prove the point,
the hamster loop.
The hamster on the wheel.
The spinning hamster wheel.
So just to prove a point, because I'm going to actually open up a can of worms here, okay? As we're talking about this, we're talking about dealing with the seller and all the objections and what the seller has concerns about, right? Well, guess what? When you go to sell the house, all this happens on the other side too, because buyers have objections and all these things you got to learn too, right? So my point is that often I'll have somebody sitting in front of me and I'll be asking, we'll say 220 for a house, 220,000 for a house, right?
Oh,
and they'll say
more than market, right?
And the market is 200, and I'll have some wise ass that will say to me, "Well, I only want to pay $200,000 for the house," and without a beat. Actually, let's role play it, okay? Just because I want to show you how it works.
Can't I role play it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You be the buyer.
Yeah, but I know the answer. All right, I'll go. I know I'm chasing. I know the answer to this one. When you know the answer to these things, it's fabulous. But I'll be the guy. So like, you're trying to pitch me the house. It's a $200,000 house, but I can't get a mortgage, and it's a rent to own, and it's really $220 for me. And you come along, you say $220, and I say, well, I only want to pay market $200,000. Why would I pay more?
Okay, we can absolutely do that. So you'll be prepared to close within 30 days, right?
What? Dumb.
Okay, so kind of off track.
He has to put 5 or 10% down or 20% down and go to the bank and get a loan. He can.
And he says, "No, I'm not ready. I'm not." Well, let's keep going. So you say whatever. So you're ready. So you'll be able to close within 30 days, right?
Well, no, I don't qualify for the mortgage right now.
Okay, then the price is $220. That's it.
That's it.
There's nothing else to talk about.
But that's the whole thing.
So
they cannot get a mortgage, and this is how you're going to help them. But they have to pay for it. I'm sorry.
Either play by the rules or get out of my office.
You got yourself in a situation somehow.
Play by the rules or get out of my office.
Yeah, even if it's not your fault, it's not a matter of you're a bad person. You got in that situation. It's a market. Nobody gives a damn. You can't go to the hot dog stand guy and say, I only got a quarter.
Right.
He says, tough shit. Yeah. Leave. There's 10 people in back of you that have the whole dollar. Get out of my face.
Peter, hot dogs for lunch. Oh. I haven't had those in a while.
Bill, I'm bringing hot dogs next week for lunch on your grill.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
All right. So the other question you were asking was something about hurting your chances.
The other thing, the mortgage. The other thing that happens if the people still have the mortgage because it's a lease option for a couple of years, they usually got to move on and buy another house someplace.
Oh, I see.
So they have to qualify for mortgage someplace else. And they worry, well, geez, if I still have this mortgage, how do we get another one? My credit won't support 2 mortgages.
Okay, so this is...
How do you do that?
Exactly. So this is a little bit different because we're not talking about a slot deal or lease option deal. We're actually talking about if we were to do like a subject to deal or getting the deed deal. So in other words, the deed is going to go in our name and the mortgage is going to stay in their name. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is really good because this is territory that a lot of people don't teach. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you the short answer, but then I'm going to tell you there's a much longer and much more convincing answer. Okay?
Yep.
But I'm going to give you the short answer. So I have... because the question can come in a couple different ways. It'll be like, won't this hurt the chances of me getting a mortgage? Or I hear it with, I don't want to leave the mortgage in my name. Right? It's got a couple different ways that you'll get this, but they mean the same thing. Okay?
Yeah, they got a mortgage.
Well, they don't want the mortgage to stay in their name. So you need to figure out why. It's usually because they have thoughts of going on to another house and they feel like this mortgage will impede their ability to get the new mortgage.
Yeah.
Right?
But can't that still happen on a lease option because they still have the mortgage,
right.
No?
It could, but it usually
right.
comes up with subject to. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's what I would say. I'd say something like, "Wow, that's pretty smart. You know what you're doing, right?" And then I would say the payment that I'll be paying for this loan could possibly throw off what they call a debt to income ratio in your new loan. So when you are going for the new loan, all right, we will provide you with paperwork to show the new loan officer we're making payments.
Right.
Which helps the debt-to-income ratio because now you're showing both sides of the debt-to-income ratio. So
Yeah.
you're only thinking of the debt side.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show the income, it tends to be a wash, and the loan officer always feels comfortable with pushing forward on your deal or on your loan.
So when you started saying this, you said something like usually, mostly, not for sure? Or is it for sure?
What is? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you said something like it usually works out okay that if we show them the income, it turns out okay.
You don't have a crystal ball on a loan officer. There's been times where I switch loan officers. I'll tell the person, go get another loan officer and we'll get the deal done.
So it's really up to just that guy, not even
Sometimes.
just the policy of the bank.
Sometimes.
Oh,
Sometimes.
Jesus. Okay, I got it.
So after I say all that, I would say, after all, lots of people or investors do this all the time, right? So
Well,
it's
yeah.
not anything new. In fact, it makes you look savvy with your money with the bank.
Yeah.
Because like you and I, we don't have one property, right? We have multiple properties. You know, how many people do we talk to that are landlords that have, you know, I don't know, 14 buildings and 50 doors?
Sure.
The bank, it doesn't hurt their income, debt-to-income ratio. They just have to show both the income and the debt.
Yeah, it's a ratio. Ratio.
Right.
Both.
Okay,
Good.
so now we have some questions to ask because this is good. Okay, so this is vital. What I'm going to teach you right now, Peter, is like, as far as I'm concerned, probably the jewel in the whole podcast. Okay,
All right.
because they're asking what I call an encoded question. They're not asking the direct question. They're encoding it. They're like coming around the back door. Instead of asking the question directly, something else is going on here.
Well, they're worried about something.
So they don't want the mortgage to be in their name because they have a plan.
Okay.
And they're trying to shed this mortgage so they can move on. In most cases, some people will say no because of fear. I don't want the mortgage to be in my name because of fear. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. Remind me, I'll come back to that. Okay, but in most cases, they're like trying to move on and trying to buy another house. Okay, so you kind of determine that, and then you would say to them, "Do you have a new house picked out yet that you're planning to buy?" Just ask them, do you have a new house picked out yet that you're planning to buy? Now watch this. So let's role play it. So why don't you just answer me? So Pete, do you have a new house that you're that's picked out and you're planning to buy?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So do you need the proceeds from this house or this transaction to buy the new house?
Not really. We're downsizing to a condo, so not really.
Good. So why don't you tell me what you're planning on doing with this house so I can help you get there nice and easy?
Well, we don't need this house because we're downsizing to the condo, so I just want to sell it. And in the long run, just make the most money I can from the house, more like an investment.
So if I did
Get
if I did that and showed you where you can make a lot more money than just selling it, would that be beneficial to you?
Yeah, well, depending on how long it takes.
So there you go. We're right at the front door of making an offer. But by asking those three questions, right? Because you asked, because we're telling you we leave the mortgage in your name, you're saying, I don't want to leave the mortgage in my name. I'm afraid that will hurt my chances of getting another mortgage. Right?
If I wanted, So what do you do? What do you do if I say, well, yeah, there's this really beautiful, nicer, bigger house I want to buy, and I need money for the down payment? Can you still do something?
So how much do you need for the down payment?
Well, $30,000.
Okay. So is that what you want to put down, or is that what the loan officer is telling you have to put down? Are you putting that much down to try to get to a payment amount?
Well, yeah, because I thought I could get that much from the house at least, and then have a not so bad a payment.
Okay, good. So I'm not saying you can't get that much with the house. I'm just trying to figure out how much you need now and how much we can give you later. Suppose I gave you $50,000 because you waited. Would that work for you?
Do I get anything now at all?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. How much you need? What's the minimum amount you would need to get into the new house?
Okay. I could probably do it for 10.
See?
Just to get in.
See what just happened? But that's because we've already built some agreement. He trusts me to give me those numbers. He knows that I know what I'm talking about. He knows I'm trying to help him. And he's not trying to make a deal right now. He's just trying to answer his own questions in his own head, and he needs to be comfortable. It's kind of like I hate to use this example. I want you to know I'm going to apologize to you, Peter, and all my friends.
Should I take my headphones out yet?
Maybe. This is kind of like going to a psychiatrist and laying down on the couch. The psychiatrist asks the questions, but if the patient is distracted by some noise or some other thing in the room, they're not going to find the right answers. So it's like the psychiatrist has the patient like in session, we'll say, right? Like they're like in the therapy session, right? But if there's some distraction in the room or something else, so the person can't just freely, they're distracted, their mind's going to go to the distraction and not answer your question. So you kind of like have this person like in that, we'll say reverie, right? Where you're just kind of like asking them these questions because you're in a safe space, he trusts you, and things are just kind of flowing because he's just trying to think it through. But you made it so it's a safe place for him to communicate because you're not evaluating, you're not telling him he's wrong, you're not trying to steal his money. He feels all that now, so he's just kind of like working with you on how can we solve this problem. Oh, this is an interesting concept, he's thinking. So let me play this out and see where it goes. And you keep egging him on by saying, well, what if I were to give you 50,000 instead of 30,000? Would that interest you? And then you pique his curiosity, and then you just keep going down that avenue.
So in that scenario, if you offered the 50 and if you really did it, you somehow work out the 10 now, but you might need more time on the transaction to catch up from
transaction,
that. So the more you give him, the more you give, the longer you take.
So instead of giving him a 2-year transaction, we might turn it into a 7-year or 10-year.
Right. You said something else really interesting about a paragraph ago. It was something like, I'm not if you said it, but I got the idea like you say to the person, so look, I'm not saying we're going to do this. This isn't the deal, but just what if? Just for hypothetical. So if you can tell the person that this is just thinking out loud and this isn't the deal, relax, just throw some numbers around. Let's try batting fourth, see if one of them works. Takes the pressure off. Like if you say that, you're going to not hook him on the hook and then make him liable for that. It's not. It's just like, would this work? How about let's try a few things.
Yeah. It's almost like your wife wants you to move furniture in the house, right? And she's like, I want to put the couch on that wall, and you drag the couch over there, and it doesn't fit on that wall. And she's like, well, how about that wall? And you drag the couch over there. You know what I mean? So next thing you know, you drag the couch across the room 3 times, and it's like, well, the only place it could fit is where it was, right? Or you could do it the smart way, and you could take out a tape measure and measure the couch, and when she says she wants to put it on that wall, take the tape measure over there and say, well, it won't fit. Right? So that's what we're doing with this seller at this point is we're taking the tape measure out and we're saying, well, how about this? Or this might fit over here or that might fit over there. And then you're just kind of like going through it until both of you are satisfied or not satisfied and you agree to disagree or you agree to agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of like taking the pressure off. Like I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but what if?
Hypothetical.
Just to make it a hypothetical, so there's no pressure.
Suppose I were to do this. How would that help you?
Yeah.
Or what if I, and you know me because I always this is like my only pretending part where I'm being trying to be interesting instead of interested, which you shouldn't do. But I'm like, I'll sit back and I'll like cock my head and I'll be like, oh, I got an idea. How about we do this?
As if you just thought of it. Like if you hadn't said it 100 times to other people. Like, oh, I just got this great idea. I never thought of this before.
New unit at a time. But, right? But it works because they feel like you're working with them. All right,
Yeah, but it's still real. It's still today a new person. It's still fresh.
For them, it is.
It's still honest. Yeah, it is.
So let's do a couple more and then we'll get out of here. Okay.
Okay. So. As a corollary, then they can be worried if this would wreck their credit.
Right. Yeah,
that's kind of what we've been talking about.
That's a big thing, yeah. So, here's how I would answer that. So they're worried about their credit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Mm-hmm. Well, technically, that is possible. In all our deals we've done like this, it hasn't happened. Here's why. We don't let the tenant buyer in the house without an extensive background check. We do plenty of background checks. And enough money down to get them qualified for a mortgage. We hold a majority of those funds, so if they don't pay or damage the house, we have funds to make sure our agreements with you are safe and able to be paid. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So if you're careful enough with the person, because that's what I worry about, get the wrong person in here and make a mess of everything and leave me hanging.
So this is the question I would ask, and this is a little bit technical, and I don't know if I really hesitated on actually talking about this, but it's what I do, so I'm going to just let it fly. Mm-hmm. If they're asking this question, I want to clear my runway. So I would ask them, have you done something like this before and got burned?
They might be sitting on something.
Right? So what happens is they don't want to do payments with you because they did it 20 years ago, or their dad did it 20 years ago, or they have stories of why it's not good.
Yeah.
So what you got to do is what I call, you got to bleed it off. You got to because there's it's charged up in their mind, right? It's it's kind of got this energy to it that is negative, right? So you got to kind of bleed it off. Kind of how when you get you smash your fingernail and you get a what do you call it?
A blood blister?
Well, yeah, under your fingernail, and it's got all that pressure, and you kind of take a pin and you put it in there and you relieve the pressure. Right? It's kind of a gross way to put it, but that's what this is kind of like, right? You got to relieve the pressure. So if they say they've gotten burned before, you would have them tell you the story of what happened, and just let it out. Let them tell you the story.
Isn't that funny? I'm sure most people would think you want to. Well, isn't it nature that we just want to avoid problems? Yeah. And if something comes up, avoid it. But I've worked with some very smart salespeople and registrars, and it's really way better to just have the person tell you what's on their mind, get it out of the way. Right. You can't be afraid of that. You cannot be. It won't work. You can't. It's like you go on a date. You have to ask the girl why is she upset about something. You ordered a salad. You said Caesar salad. She gets upset. What's with Caesar salads? Right. Oh man, there's a story. Right. You got to get it out of the way. Right. Don't be afraid.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is once you bleed off this mental anguish, you're going to realize what part of it actually bothers them, and you can hone in on that to help protect them against that. I'm not telling you this is going to go away. It will help because now they'll be able to talk about it. But suppose they say something like, well, my dad used to go out every Sunday morning and collect rents instead of going to church with my mom and I.
Oh boy.
I mean, it could be something that simple.
Yeah, but it's very specific, you're saying.
Huh? Well, it could be. It could be that's the upset. Yeah. It's I don't want to take payments because I don't want to have to go Sunday mornings and collect payments because that's what my dad used to do, right?
Yeah.
So, you don't evaluate why they're telling the story. You let the whole story get out, and then you come back to, well, nowadays we don't do that. Nowadays we do all the collecting electronically, so you don't have to go out like your dad did. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So as they're telling their story, you'll learn like what occurs or what happened back then. That's like it's charged up in their mind. It's like this mental charged up block. It's like an electric fence. When they touch it, they go zzz, and they get zapped. So when their mind goes there, they get zapped. You know what I mean?
But isn't it funny how that's stuck for all these years, and they have a decision about it and an opinion, and it's just stuck right there.
Yeah. And it's stopping you from doing your deal. So that's a little bit complicated, but the easy thing is to just get them to talk about what happened in the past instead of just trying to solve the problem up front. Because that's kind of like when I have coaching clients, it's like I can't shove their education down their throat. They have to be willing to like chew on it and taste it and swallow it. Otherwise it won't work. So by telling them all the answers of what you can do for them, it's kind of like shoving food in their face when they don't want to eat. Let them tell their story. Let them bleed it off. Let them work it through. And then you come back afterwards and you tell your solutions in relationship to their story. And it's a lot more positive and it's a lot more beneficial. Okay? It's a little deep there, and I shouldn't be doing this on a podcast. This is definitely coaching material. But the point is if you understand how to do that, it will make a big difference. All right, so let's move on.
Well, the other thing that happens, I think more on the subject too, taking over the deed, they wonder if the lender might call the loan due because it's due on sale clause that's in mortgage contracts. If you sell this, you have to pay the mortgage off. Which if you sell the house, give us our money because they just lost the collateral.
Right. So a couple questions ago, I was talking about when you were like, "Can we leave the loan in my name?" I told you I would answer it a different way. So I'm going to kind of work on that in this question as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So what if, so honestly, Pete, I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? This is the honest to God's truth. And I hope our listeners get this. They won't. It'll go right over their head and they won't believe me. And I'm totally fine with that because once they start getting in houses, they'll realize it. Yeah. But this objection comes from my students, not from my buyers. I mean, my sellers. This comes from the students, not the sellers. I don't hear this a lot because people don't know there's a due on sale clause on their mortgage.
No, that's pretty technical stuff. That's what's that like page 7, item 42.
Right. Okay. So most of it is this is mostly for the investors we're talking to now, not the homeowner. But there are some homeowners that will ask this question, so we'll cover it, okay? So they're asking some owners will tell me like if they want to do a rent to own, they're like, I got to call the mortgage company and make sure I can do that. And they don't realize that the mortgage company doesn't have that much control. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it will come up that way too. Okay? So here's my answer. Even though it's technically possible, it just doesn't work that way. I personally have known, I'll give it to you again. I have personally not known anyone that this has happened to. And I've done a lot of transactions and I talked to a lot of people in real estate. The mortgage company makes their money from the interest payments. The mortgage company makes money from interest and not taking the house back unless they absolutely have to. So they're making their money on the interest, not taking the house back. Okay?
Yeah, they work hard to get mortgages. My son worked at a bank. They hound the staff to sell mortgages because they don't want the money. They want the interest.
Yeah. Plus, if I'm going to put your house in what I'm going to do is once we do the transaction, I'm going to put your house in a property trust. So just the trust, just the property is in this trust, nothing else. and I'm going to run the trust myself. All right. So the bank sees this as estate planning and will never dream of calling the no due because my checks are paying their interest.
Yeah.
It's actually the safest way I know for you to lend money without walking away. The lawyer will make sure of that because when we do the transaction. Plus, it is the only way I can pay you way more than I should be paying you as an investor, is let me to take over the mortgage payments.
See, I like that part. You just took the possible negative and made it a benefit. It's the only way you can pay more for the house.
Right.
So if he wants more for the house, this is his only shot.
Right.
There's not another option B, C, because you already got through the other options, the other ways to buy the house. You picked this one, and you made it the way to go.
So that's my short answer. I know it's a little bit late because we're like pushing the envelope right now. Sometimes I'll ask them one of the questions, which I don't have written down here. So one of the questions that I'll ask them is, who told you this? Because there's another investor involved. Did you hear this from another investor? And I'll have to debunk that the other investor told them that, and I'll just tell them, well, the other investor really didn't know what he was talking about.
Right.
Okay. Now, my long answer, which I'm going to curb it quite a bit, is I tell a story, and the story I tell us is that once I had a house that I did like this, and we had that house for about 18 months, and what happened was the seller went and got their favorable mortgage. We had a closing with an attorney. Everything happened, was all hunky-dory. I got my money. We were done. About 4 months later, I come walking into my office, and I get served from a sheriff. I look at the documents. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Well, evidently, the attorney, the lawyer, didn't pay the mortgage.
The lawyer.
Because we're a judicial state, so our closing agents are attorneys, right? So the lawyer didn't, there was $141,000 owed, he didn't pay the mortgage. So the mortgage was 4 months late, and they're serving me foreclosure notice, okay? Now, obviously, I don't use that lawyer. Obviously, I worked it out with him. Obviously, he paid the $4,000 or $5,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 in fees and didn't like it. There's a whole nother story there, but that's not the point of the story that I'm telling you right now. Is what I'm telling you is it opened my eyes up to something very valuable. If you put the deed in my name, the mortgage stays in your name. The first thing that's going to happen when I don't pay is the mortgage company is going to do a title search, and they're going to find my name on the title and your name on the mortgage. So they're going to serve both of us, and both of us are going to go to court if it goes that far. And quite frankly, I'm being a little nasty to you right now, Mr. Seller, but I think I probably have more properties than you, so I got more to jeopardize than you do. So,
and you're not going to jeopardize it. You're going to make sure these things get taken
because
care
I
of.
don't want
You're going to pay the mortgage.
I don't want it to infect my other deals and have this lawyer poking around from the bank saying, hey, you got all these other properties, we're going to call the loan undue. Yeah. Or something like that. I don't want to have that in my business. So it's actually safer for you to do this and put the deed in my name than do a lease option or do a slot deal, because I am legally 100% responsible for this property. If somebody sues, if it burns down, I got to deal with the insurance company. There are so many things that happen when the deed goes in my name that's unspoken that gets you off the hook. It's unbelievable. This is the best way for you to do a transaction with me. Okay, so that's my long answer. All right.
Yeah,
So
that's a real one.
When I get all done, I'm going to ask them this question: when were you planning to move by?
I just think that's a funny place to put that. I wasn't expecting that. So go ahead. Why that one?
Would you Would you? And then the next thing I would say is, when are you planning on a move by, right? And then I would say, wouldn't you think that your life would be better if we can get this deal wrapped up soon? And then lastly, I would say to them, now watch, you're going to love this one, Peter. Do you have another plan that guarantees you can be done with this transaction by your deadline? So at the end of the day, Pete, if you have, and listen to what I'm going to tell you here, if you have more great answers than sellers have questions, the stress goes out of wanting to make offers and talking to prospects.
Absolutely. I mean, that is just so true.
So I'm going to repeat that. At the end of the day, if you have more great answers than sellers have questions, the stress goes right out of wanting to make offers and talking to prospects. You're going to want to do it. It's going to become a game to you.
Yeah.
Right? And confidence soars, which is the real magic that makes deals happen. It's that confidence you have that makes these deals happen. The questions you ask determine the responses you get. The questions you ask determine the responses you get. Ask the wrong questions, you'll get the wrong responses. Ask the right question, you'll get the right responses, and you'll make deals. Your words determine what you get in life. Your words determine what you get in life, which is why I'm so adamant about the words. Understanding the words and knowing what the more words you have and the more words you use correctly determine what you get in life. Right? I mean, proof of that, That's what a lawyer does. A lawyer is literally an index of words. And he puts them in the right place at the right time so that they can be safe. So somebody could be safe.
And he's a guy that understands the contracts.
Yeah. Right? So what I just said to you, you should rewind this and listen to it several times, because the advice I'm giving you right now took me 20 plus years to figure out, and thousands and thousands and thousands of offers, tens of thousands of dollars in books and courses and tapes, and you got it in a 90-minute podcast. Actually, 2 90-minute podcasts. Right? So because of that, I'm requiring you to go subscribe to our podcast, because this is what we do week after week. And please, please go give us a review. I love the reviews. And I know we're getting them because I asked for them last week up front. I feel like I'm saving you tens of thousands of dollars of education and hundreds, if not thousands of hours of learning how to do this. And going and having you reinvent the wheel. So I feel like I've just shortcutted that in a few hours worth of your time. And I really wish that you give me some exchange back, mostly for you, not for me, because otherwise you'll feel like you and I are you'll feel criminal if you don't give me some exchange, because I've given you a lot. I give a lot on these podcasts anyways, but especially the last couple podcasts. Yeah. We've given a lot, because these are real questions. This is real time. This is exactly what happens when you sit in the house. And what will happen to most people, Peter, and then we're going to end off, what will happen with most people is they'll listen to these podcasts and they'll be driving or working or exercising or talking to other people. Like last night, we're on the meetup, and it's a virtual meeting, and somebody unmuted themselves and they're having a completely different conversation with somebody else, not even listening to me. So it's like, why are you on the call? Just get off the call. I muted them. I almost kicked them off. It's like, if you're not going to listen to what we're talking about, then why are you here? Just go away. I'm okay with that. If you're going to be here and you're going to use my time and your time, get something out of it.
Yeah.
Walk away with some, and you should listen to these calls. I suggest you listen to them 10 times because there's a lot of information. And you should write down, like I said, you should write down on a 5x7 card. You should write down the question on one side and the answer on the other side, and you should drill them. I mean, Tom Selleck didn't become Tom Selleck and make all the money he made by not knowing his lines, did he?
I don't think he winged it. He's not Robin Williams.
Yeah, right? So, what's his name? They keep talking about him at the smoke shop, the basketball player. Oh, my God. Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson wouldn't be Magic Johnson if he didn't make 10,000 practice shots to the hoop, did he? Would he?
Nope.
You can't just think you're going to go into a house and you're going to know how to answer somebody and they're going to hand you the keys to the kingdom for a $30,000 profit just because you were a really good talker. It doesn't work that way. Okay? You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to do all that. Or the other choice you have is to go deal with REOs and realtors and bankers and go get approved for loans and deal with the REO, real estate owned properties with the banks and get banged around by the big boys, because I promise you this, they will harpoon you like you've never been harpooned before in your life. They are ruthless, careless people. Think about this, Peter. When you're dealing with a banker, do you know who's making the decisions? It's a big, dark, deep hole, because the spineless bastard that's making that decision won't confront you. He'll hide in his office and he'll put the big enterprise up in front of you and he'll say, well, these are our policies and this is what we do, and get away with murder. So those deals you make less money because it's all about the money, and you don't know how many other people you're bidding against, and you don't know. I mean, I've had deals where they told me they had a property sold, and 6 months later I bought it. They point blank told me it was sold, and 6 months later I bought the product for the price I wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think I saw that one.
So anyways, if you want to play that game and you don't want to learn the stuff we're teaching you here, that's totally cool. Many, 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 many people before us have made many, many millions of dollars just doing that. But now you're going to make 100 offers instead of 15 or 20. And it's going to be a harder game.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, Peter, we're going to end off. And I hope everybody enjoyed this. Please go give us a review, whatever platform. I like them on iTunes. You can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. If you scroll down, the podcast is in the middle of the homepage. And right underneath it, there's a link there. You can give us a review there. Or if you have any questions about anything we covered, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Go to the top right-hand corner, hit Contact Us. And those support tickets come right to me, and I will answer them. I answer them a couple times a day. Okay? Over and out. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.